Kayo-san, thank you. Well, and welcome back to the Business Karaoke podcast. And now we're in our English brains, as we said. Let's change to our
Oh, yes.
English brains.
Okay, thank you for having me today to discuss.
No,
Yay.
oh, so we're so lucky to have you. I'd love if you would share a little bit with the listeners how becoming a mother inspired your business. Often we hear that, when you become a mother, or it's very difficult to have a family and a business, but actually becoming a mother was the inspiration for your business. So, can you tell us a little bit about
Exactly.
what you were doing and
Mm,
then your transition from the corporate world to having your own business?
right, right. Okay, thank you. So, right now, I'm running a Tokyo-based virtual assistant company, and then okay, I'll talk about the background about my work experience. So after I became a mother, I continued a full-time job for 3 years, but it was overwhelming to me. I enjoyed, right? Yes, yeah, yeah. So I enjoyed both of it, but I was
Uh-huh.
always physically tired of having both
Sure.
of it. Yeah, I have 24 hours, right? And
Only.
yeah, yeah. Before I becoming a mom,
Mhm,
what I had to do was only my job, right?
mhm.
And after I became a mother, I have the same 24 hours, but workload was the same. And on top of that, we have to take care of my kids. And my husband was very busy at that time with his business. So I was main person to do the housework and taking care of kids. And yes, so it was difficult choice for me, but I chose to quit my full-time job to concentrate on raising my children with a dream to create a society where people with various backgrounds can work at their own pace, which was to start my virtual assistant business.
Right, and that business
Mhm.
today is called And Assist, and
Yes.
it's that your dream has come true. Can you talk to us a little bit about the your And Assist and the women that you employ? That they are all very similar to you. They're also like
Right,
working mothers. There's
right.
a stereotype that working mothers are. Maybe they won't be able to reach deadlines and things like that.
Mm,
But I've always found working mothers to be super efficient, and always sometimes, the first ones to get their work done because they've got 100 other things to do. I'd love if
right.
you can share with me a little bit more about your experience with working with working mothers.
Oh, yes. Okay, let me talk about my experience when I was working for the Financial Institute. Like, I before I had my kids, I was working like overtime because it was easier. Like, I come to workplace and drink a cup of coffee and read our emails, and my day was very slow, and I was like thinking long time what is the best way to finish this task.
Mhm.
But after I got my child, I had to leave the office at 5 o'clock exactly. Otherwise, my kids are kicked out from the nursery school. And then, the suddenly, I go to workplace and no coffee, read all the emails quickly. There was no time to think about the best way to finish this task. Just I was just always running around the office.
I
Then
think,
yeah.
yeah. I also work in the Japanese corporate world, and I sometimes hear people say that working mothers don't come back to work because they don't want to. But
Okay.
that's not really always the case. Sometimes we see that working mothers don't necessarily come back because maybe there's no structure to support them, maybe there's no kind of welcome back kind of process. Is if you think about it, the world can change in a year. Imagine for those women who had a baby a year ago before COVID, right? And then imagine going back to your workplace remotely. Lots much change, right? So I'd love to
exactly.
hear from your point of view. What can a company do to support women who want to, right? Because this is all about women's choice. This is not women should have children or not, or work or not. That's
Mm.
up to them. But for those women who have children and who want to work, what are some things that you think a company can do to support them?
Oh, yes. So first of all, I totally agree with your idea that the woman doesn't want to come back to work. Women doesn't mean that they do not want to work. It's just so hard to, do the both full-time job and um, the raising the kids. So the solution I am thinking is that like when the kids is small, like maybe until the kids becomes a kindergarten or enter to the elementary school, after that women can work full time again. So what I'm thinking is that they will provide women with lots of like kids taking care leaves or something like that.
Right. And
Mm,
we see that there's that this is obviously then different from company to company.
right.
I'd love to hear more from your side. Is if we think about women in the workplace,
Yeah.
and if we think about particularly now that Japan ranks quite low for women
Yes.
in the workplace, but
Yeah.
historically there's always been historically we've seen very important Japanese females contributing to not only just females but also mothers. We've seen Japanese females contributing to Japanese history, but
Exactly. Exactly.
somehow
Yeah.
the past or the history of the past, the ancient past, isn't reflecting today, right? Where we have, in my opinion, when I'm running workshops and I'm working with companies, most of the time the people that have gone abroad have been the women, and they tend
Mm,
to be a little bit more flexible, speak better English. And I'm thinking, these women, they're so talented. It'd be such a shame, if we lost them. So I'd love to hear a little bit of your thoughts on that. Japanese women are not these kind of shy women who don't have any
mm.
thoughts for themselves and ranked very low, in terms of like the working world. But we've seen some very strong Japanese women over history, haven't we?
Yeah, 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 exactly. Like I'm working with mothers right now, and then surprising how they are talented so much. Yeah, and 1,800 years ago, the Japanese Queen Himiko created a Japan country called Yamataikoku. And then right now, the emperor is only restricted only for the men to become the emperor in Japan. But many hundred years ago, there was a female emperor existed.
Right.
So right now, yeah, it's questioning why, yeah, right now it's so man dominated company, Japanese.
Right,
Mm,
exactly. And if we think about that, that a woman was leading the country all those years ago,
yeah,
I'd love
I,
to hear a
yeah,
little bit about also if we think about where we are today.
yeah,
There's this concept, and we spoke about it in Japanese, kind of this like mottainai, like the
right, right, right.
misuse of kind of like resources. And if we think about working women being such a big part of the Japanese economy, and if we think
Mhm.
about what kind of opportunities do you see that are missed by not creating systems for women to come back into the workplace? And what do you think will happen if we don't change that?
Mm, okay, so um, I go back to the topic of the Japanese previous historical aspect of the Japanese workplace. I believe that the Japan's long history of patriarchy is one of the major impact. And the patriarchy I am talking about is a family form which a man with authority controls and dominates the members of the family.
Mhm.
And yeah, usually the eldest son has authority over the family. When the woman get married, she becomes the lowest in the new family. She joins, and she was made to work like a servant.
Mm.
And even nowadays, when the family get together, Japanese women feel the pressure to take care of all the housework.
Mhm.
So this is kind of Japan for a long time. So now we have to change it
Mm.
to move forward. And I think not only Japan that the patriarchy system was used. So we can, and the other countries like US and European country are moving forward as well. So there is a way for Japan to move on, right? Mm.
Absolutely. And I think that it's going to have to be, if we look at, Japanese companies obviously being very male driven,
Yes.
the way forward is going to be a partnership. We can't say, there's only, there's men and then there's women and we work in these separate
Mm.
groups, or there's mothers and working mothers, but there's also working fathers. Um, I even know of kind of younger people, kind of in their 30s, males that prioritize their family and say to their bosses, "I'm going home at 5 o'clock." This probably
Mm.
didn't happen 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And if
Yes.
we think about when these young parents are kind of coming
Mm.
back into the workplace,
Yes.
it's very difficult um, to kind of just start changing systems, right? Because we've also seen, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on going to school, right? Going to school in Japan.
Yes.
That there's a way that certain things go. I mentioned to you. I remember my first class in Japan. I put my hand up, and the teacher said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I have a question." And they looked at me like, why do you have a question? And for me, a classroom was a place to kind of like ask questions. So you can't go from one day where you've learned for your entire schooling, like shogakko, chigakko, koko, for the
Right.
entire schooling,
Yep.
don't ask questions, don't put your hand up, don't change things. And then
Mm.
one day, just because you become a parent, you all of a sudden change things. That's not how it works. People, I think, need time to develop this
Exactly.
skill. What's your
Right.
what's your views on that? What do you think?
Oh yes, I totally agree with you. The Japanese education system also dragging down the opportunities of Japanese women, I believe. The patriarchy system is seen at the schooling too. Like a teacher teaches and the students must obey them.
Mm-hmm.
And this creates a barriers between the two roles.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are strict rules and
Mm-hmm.
you have to follow the rules no matter how you feel about it.
Right.
Like
And you don't
for
ask questions,
example,
right?
yeah, exactly, yeah. Like for example, we couldn't ever use like a mechanical pencil. The
Okay.
student must use yeah, yeah, yeah. The students must use a traditional wooden pencil,
Mm-hmm.
and even teacher doesn't know the reason for it, but
Mm-hmm.
we had to follow it because it's a rule. Yeah, so
Right.
even if we found some particular rule strange, we wouldn't question it.
Mm-hmm.
So students who can follow the rule without having a question is considered to be a good student.
That's right. That is
Yeah,
very
and
true.
becoming parents and create
Mm-hmm.
a better place for the parents. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
for Japanese people, yeah, create a new rules. Yeah, we are just told to follow it.
Mm-hmm.
Create a new rules. It is difficult for Japanese people. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Mm.
would love to hear as we kind of wrap up today. I would love
Yes.
to hear about the kind of world that you wish we would create. So imagine in 5 years' time, or even 8 years' time from now, what are some changes that you would love to see in either a Japanese company? Because I know it's not for everyone. Having your own business
Mm.
like you and I do, it's not for everyone. It's a lot of stress, actually. So, some people are very valuable contributors to a company. I'd love to hear in 5 years' time or in 8 years' time, what are some changes that you would love to see in Japan for working women, working mothers as well?
um, yes, yes. Actually, even not only for the mothers, but
Mhm,
for everyone. Everyone has their every various backgrounds,
mhm,
and I want everyone to be able to work at their own pace. And in Japan right now, if you quit the full-time job right now, and then it is really difficult to coming back as your full-time job.
mhm,
So if you um, stop working as a full time, and it is really difficult to come back. So I want to change that system. Even if you stop working for 1 or 2 years, then there should be another opportunity for that people to come back to the work.
Mhm.
And
I'd love
yeah,
one thing that I was most excited about your business was not only what you do, the services that you provide, but actually the opportunities that you give other people, which is that you give working mothers an opportunity to kind of
right,
have a
right.
little bit more flexibility, a little bit more freedom in their own lives. I'd love, as we kind of wrap up, I'd love to hear, is there one person or one moment or one story that kind of like stands out for you as a moment that you kind of recognize, oh wow, this person has really kind of taken back their life?
So um, I have there is a very very talented mothers who has her children with unhealthy condition, and
Hmm.
she is trying her best to provide her with a healthy food and try to bring him to the lots of hospitals, seeing to the many different doctors to hear the many opinions. And yeah, she used to be like a general manager of the huge company of
Mm-hmm.
Japan. So everyone is like, "It's such a waste of your career. Why don't you come back to work as a full-time job?" But it is impossible for her because the kids, her children, is more important than anything else. So yes, she is, she is no choice to coming back to work as a full time.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is, a choice that she can come back to work not as a full time job, then she can use
Hmm.
her ability for the Japan. That's such a waste. And
Right,
I can't believe that. Yeah,
this
I can't
incredibly
believe.
talented
Yeah,
woman,
yeah.
right?
I can't believe that. Like she is underassist. Underassist is very small company right now. So yeah, so I mean like thank you for the Japan's bad conditions. Now I can able to hire her.
And Kayo-san,
Yeah.
this is exactly something that I find so inspiring about you and your story, is that you saw difficult conditions, but somehow you were able to create an environment that not only provides a really great service, but in the meanwhile, you're able to help people live life
Yeah.
on their own terms. And I'm forever inspired by that, inspired by what you do.
Thank
I hope
you.
to do the same. And make sure you come back to the Business Karaoke podcast and tell us how things are going and keep us updated. And we'd love to have you back anytime.
Yeah, thank you so much. And lastly, I just want to mention that to the people who is non-Japanese, that the Japanese characteristic, Japanese people, including myself, have been expected to be diligent and respond to as expected. So, but we didn't have much opportunity to raise our voices.
Mm.
So we not get used to doing something, create new society. But
Mhm.
yeah, but we need a strong will and action to fundamentally change it. So yeah, and Japanese women, including myself, um, are like working in their male dominated society created by men. So instead of that, Japanese women needed to stand up and change the society to fit ourselves.
And what would you say to that person if you were saying that to if you have one person in mind and you're saying, "Hey,
Mhm.
you can do it." What's something that you'd want to tell them, that Japanese woman that you have in mind? What would you want to tell her?
So I would say that we are not getting used to raise our voices by myself. So let's get together and
Nice.
becoming a big group, and then let's raise a voice together so that yeah, our
Nice.
voice will become stronger and stronger, and maybe it's reached to the Japanese government.
I love that. So instead of doing it on your own, to know that you can do it together. So on that night, Kayo-san, thank you so much for joining us on the Business Karaoke podcast. You can come back anytime. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.